How do you play dead SEC schools this week in Week 12? Taking a look at the playoff race with the Big Ten and the ACC, the Heisman Watch, market odds, and best bets. Bobby, let's jump right into it. The Big Ten kind of cannibalized itself this week with Iowa losing at home to Oregon, as well as what was the other game that? Of course, how can I forget Washington's box score win, but results loss to Wisconsin. So, Bobby, could you talk us through the Big Ten playoff landscape now?
Yep. So we mentioned the possibility of how the Big Ten would get 4 teams into the college football playoff last week, and it kind of relied on teams like Washington, Iowa, USC, Michigan winning out, maintaining their 2 losses. Well, 2 of those teams lost. Obviously, they did it in very different fashions. Iowa with a tough defeat, losing at the last second to Oregon and Kinnick in a wonderfully weather game, and Washington proving once again that their road issues matter here quite a bit. That's a problem they've had all year, and an embarrassing loss to a Badgers team whose leading passer was the punter in that game. So this leaves USC, Michigan is the only 2 loss remaining teams. USC still has a couple games left, including Oregon, who they have to play, and then Michigan obviously has Ohio State in the final week. So I think that's just increasingly likely that we're just going to get 3 bids from the Big Ten, which leaves the SEC very likely to get 5, as it's kind of lining up here, with Notre Dame still in line to get the at-large, potentially finishing with 2 losses and favored as the rest of the way.
Similar to the Big Ten, the ACC also kind of ate itself over the weekend, as well as embarrassing losses in non-conference, with Duke losing outright to UConn as greater than a touchdown favorite. So, Bobby, make the ACC make sense with the playoff landscape.
Well, the first part I can't do. The ACC hasn't made sense in a really long time, and now that you've infused Pac-12 After Dark into it, mixing in with the ACC Coastal, I think you're going to get mass chaos all the time here. UVA obviously lost. They weren't an at-large threat at all, unless they weren't. But Louisville obviously loses to Cal as an 18-point favorite in that one. But what this really does is this puts the ACC like guaranteed at 1 bid, unless Pitt beats Notre Dame or Georgia Tech beats Georgia, and then has to lose the ACC title game, along with other things happening in other conferences as well. I mean, this is a very thin path for the ACC. One interesting thing to note here is the market dynamic specifically at FanDuel. Duke, who's 5-4, obviously just lost to UConn this week at the Red. They're 5.5 point, 6-ish point favorites against UVA this week. They're second in the conference winners market at plus 290, but their make the playoff price, as you saw a second ago, is plus 790. Those prices don't make sense in conjunction. Even at 4 losses, this is implying some probability that this is what this would mean, that the ACC gets left out entirely, because Duke has a 0% chance to get an at-large, and then if they win the conference, that would be their conference price at plus 290. So the ACC price will make the playoff price. That's what you should bet. In this would, for Duke to miss, it would mean the American champion and James Madison would be ranked ahead of the Blue Devils. It could be an interesting test case. Obviously, Duke would have a 4-loss column to JMU's 1 potentially. But one big point here is, who did James Madison lose to? They lost by 14 points to Louisville, an ACC team. I think that hurts them a lot in this specific instance, whereas if they lost by exactly 14 to a team, I'm close to Louisville, to say like a TCU team, right? I don't think that could be held as much against them, plus JMU's schedule dynamic. So very interesting. Regardless, while there is some probability, I guess, in the market that Duke misses the playoffs, even if they make the ACC title game, I don't think it's worth that big of a gap in market. And there's a couple other ACC teams, if you compare the conference winners market to the CFP playoff yes market, where the make playoff market is a bit longer. So as always, this is kind of a reminder to make sure you check those things this time of year. Check, if you like a team for whatever reason, whoever it is, Pitt, Duke, or, a team in another conference, check to make the playoff price and the conference price at all books and shop around.
Transitioning over to the Heisman market, the odds are now tighter than ever with Julian Sayin plus 160 to win the trophy, Fernando Mendoza plus 170, and now the tail has gotten a little bit longer on Ty Simpson plus 500, Marcel Reed plus 700. Fernando Mendoza had somewhat of a Heisman moment, or at least Gus Johnson coined him the Heisman winner in the dramatic fashion in which they won against Penn State. So, Bobby, what are we thinking right now about the Heisman with just a few games left? Obviously, Mendoza and Sayin on a crash course to play one another, but can Simpson, Reed, Dago Pavia, Stockton, can any of those guys get back into this thing?
Yeah, I actually think the race is thinning a little bit. Obviously, Mendoza had his Heisman moment. He's going, with that win, mostly pedestrian stat line in that game, minus the game-winning drive where he exasperated Gus Johnson a few times there with multiple amazing catches by Indiana receivers on that drive. That was absolute cinema there for sure. I thought, and I think Indiana actually deserves a hefty downgrade. The more I look at it. And I'm starting to think that, like, I need to start mounting a position on Ohio State in the Big Ten title game now in the look-ahead market or in the conference market. I know that's a little bit separate here. But that performance against Penn State, while he has the Heisman moment, I'm actually, thinking he's less likely to win now because I now think Indiana is less likely to beat Ohio State in that game, which I think he needs to win the Heisman. I still think Simpson's obviously in it. And Marcel Reed has no buzz at all. So, I don't know, even if A&M wins the SEC now, that he's quite frankly in it. Down the board, I actually think is where it gets a little interesting now. Diego Pavia had a hell of a game against Auburn in a game I told you all not to bet. Certainly retaining the Commodores' momentum there as they were kind of slouching a little bit, kind of coming into that game. If Vandy can get to 10-2, and A&M wins the SEC where Reed's getting no buzz, I think people unless people just decide then it's staying, because we're also assuming Indiana doesn't win the Big Ten. Pavia still has a shot. Now that number obviously crashed during the Auburn game. I know some people got some 75-1, 40-1, as Vandy was coming back in that game and Pavia was putting up stats. It's really hard to say it at 20-1 now. I actually think the most underrated player in this market is right below him, Gunnar Stockton, Georgia. He has as many as 3 marquee games left. Obviously, Texas this week, Georgia Tech in the regular season finale, and a potential SEC title game if Texas can beat Texas A&M in the final week of the season. With Pavia's numbers crashing, as I mentioned, I think Gunnar is the only long shot bet here, as I'm kind of starting to think that Mendoza and Reed above him are a lot less likely than what their odds suggest.
Moving on to Sunday's openers. And we start with
321. 321, 322. Air Force UConn. Another team going to Connecticut late in the season in the middle of conference play. Huskies off the huge win, obviously, against Duke there. And Air Force still honestly fighting for a bowl berth in this one, which is still kind of in the realm of possibilities. I lean Air Force here. I think the game's a little bit, the side's a little bit high here with UConn getting a ton of credit. But in the game, there should be a ton of points, weather permitting. Going down the board, 325, 326, Texas, Georgia. This total specifically is fascinating to me. It's taken early under money. Look ahead was 51.5, opener at 49.5, and now it's sitting in that 47.5 range. To me, I think Arch is playing better. Georgia can't get pressure. Both secondaries are gettable. Both defense can stop the run, suggesting there should be more passing. So I actually kind of lean over here. It's just a matter of whether the coaches cooperate or if they go ultra conservative, which definitely is the realm of possibility. The only reason why it's not an auto click, but I actually kind of disagree with the move there. 331, 332, Memphis, East Carolina. Disappointed where this number opened. I said last week when we bet Tulane as the best bet against Memphis that the Tigers were overrated, and I definitely wanted to fade them here with ECU at a number pick. Number's pretty good here, though. 351, 352 going down the board a little bit. Notre Dame, Pitt. So I haven't had time to look into the matchups today as I was doing some traveling, but I lean that should be an over game at first glance. Obviously, we're having some snow in the Midwest right now, so you have to watch the weather in that one. And I always got to watch. I know the Steelers, are on the road today, but you got to watch hot field conditions at Heinz Field. So I know I'll look at that Colts Steelers game. That Browns crew doesn't seem to do a good job with that field late in the season with both teams playing on it. So definitely want to look at that one. But that one's taken under money from the open. Right below it, 353, 354, UNC Wake. Wake goes from a touchdown dog to more than a field goal favorite against the Tar Heels. I much prefer Wake, obviously, in an underdog role with that offense and not being able to score a ton of points, especially because, against any competition, but in a game against similar competition here. Obviously, you have an extremely low total that starts with the number 3. I need to look at the matchup, but I'm going to be considering North Carolina here as they're playing a little bit better. 371, 372. Florida to Ole Miss. Early bets on the Rebels here, as there was an early opener around 11.5 that I did bet. After the Gators' complete no-show at Kentucky. DJ Lagway got benched in that one. I wouldn't be surprised if Florida really continues to let go of the rope here. I actually think like 13.5 is still good, and I know when alts open up, I'm probably going to look at Ole Miss like minus 19.5 or something later in the week in that one.
Speaking of teams that are letting go of the rope, Bobby, I wanted to ask you about Arkansas at LSU. Arkansas coming off of the bye. Arkansas is a team that's played competitive. They've covered a lot of games. I think their losses have only been within 3 points. Now they're catching 6.5 here with a total of 55.5 against the LSU team that just benched their starting quarterback for a backup that didn't come out and be all that hot. So what does LSU look like going forward here? And maybe can Arkansas finally get that elusive SEC win?
I have no idea what we're getting out of this game right now. Obviously, specifically at quarterback from LSU, no idea. Obviously, the Arkansas defense is much worse than Alabama's. So you'd think that maybe LSU's offense could have success here. But again, like, what are we getting at quarterback and who are we getting at quarterback here? The best unit on the field is supposed to be the LSU's defense, which has performed very admirably in like every game this season for the Tigers.
Right.
Other when they let go of the rope against A&M in that second half. Not one I'm interested in betting personally. High variance, like maybe you take Arkansas in this one if you think LSU just kind of gives it up. But yeah, honestly, where I have confidence in Florida Ole Miss as kind of what's going to happen in the motivation, this is one where I have no idea what's going on with this one. Not one I'm going to bet, probably.
Right on.
And then the last game on the board here that we're going to talk about is the last one, 417, 418. Speaking of games I don't have much on, but I find interesting. Huge game still in the Mountain West. Boise, did they figure out the quarterback situation after the bye? Not great. Obviously in the game against Fresno and losing Madison for the season. Aztecs off a devastating loss, killing the Mountain West college football playoff hopes for sure on the island. I'm not sure where this game ultimately goes. Just kind of based everything, and a very well-deserved low total here, but this is one Mountain West elimination game. Now Hawaii, obviously UNLV, amazingly still having a track to win that league as well. But very interesting game. No idea where the market goes with this one.
Guys, before we get into best bets, please click that like and subscribe button. We had over 1,600 views on last Sunday's show. We got to get the likes up. That really helps the algorithm know that this is quality betting content. Bobby and I greatly appreciate everybody that tunes in and listens. If you want to drop a comment live, we're happy to answer your questions here live on the show. If you want to drop us a question on our Twitter page, Bobby and I are happy to engage. We make this show for you guys. This is truly a people show. So very much appreciate you guys. Also, leave a 5-star review on Spotify if you could. So, Bobby, last week we were 3-1 as far as beating the market close, but 1-3 as the results come in. We're moving on to week 12, and we're going to play a West Virginia team here catching 10.5.
Yeah, I would bet Tulsa again and Oregon State, by the way. Tulsa had 5 first-half turnovers, 3 traditional and 2 on downs. They were winning in yards in the first half, and then that game just got away from them. So would definitely bet that one again. Obviously, we had tons more. We had a pretty good market agreement there on that one, and Oregon State as well. West Virginia, Sometimes handicaps are simple in this one. I think West Virginia with those quarterback changes has been playing a lot better last couple weeks, and we're seeing them getting double digits against Jefferson. So yeah, we're gonna take West Virginia here in this one, plus the 10.5. There is some better out there. Shop around. And then for the second best bet, we're gonna go to the Palouse. Was told not to bet Conference USA games, but this one's a non-conference one. We're gonna lay at 6.5 with Washington State here. This is one where I just don't think CUSA. I want to fade them in non-conference play. I make the game if it was played last week, as I'm still adjusting numbers due to personal travel here. But I would have made the game above 7, and obviously Louisiana Tech lost last week here. So hard travel. Louisiana Tech still maybe has some conference goals in mind. Wazoo playing for a bowl game. Make the number higher. Wanting to fade Conference USA outside of the conference. I don't think any team in that league is inside the top 100 nationally. So we'll lay the 6.5 with the Cougs here.
You can follow Bobby at BobbyDigital2 on Twitter. You can follow the show at CFB900. Due to Bobby being in parts unknown, we will most likely have the show on Tuesday. We shall see. Until then, enjoy the action. Wishing you guys absolute best of luck. Adios.